the forgotten species in the vastness of the galaxy, where countless stars burn bright and ancient empires once ruled with unstoppable power. One species had long been forgotten. Earth, a small blue planet on the outer edges of a galaxy teeming with life, had once been home to a thriving civilization. But that was before the humans were exiled, cast aside by the dominant alien species. The galaxy had moved on, and humanity, lost in the shadows of history, was written off as a species that had no future. The humans had been scattered, pushed to the farthest corners of the universe, left to fend for themselves with nothing but their resilience. For centuries, their existence was reduced to a mere myth, a species remembered only in hushed whispers and faded records. But while the galaxy's greatest empires thought humanity had faded into irrelevance, they were wrong. In the darkness of space, far from the eyes of the powerful alien species, humanity had begun to rebuild. The first few decades had been brutal, with little more than basic technology and a fierce will to survive. Humans had started from scratch. Their once proud cities lay in ruins, and their greatest achievements were lost to time. But the spirit of survival, of innovation, was in their blood. No matter how far they were pushed, no matter how harsh the conditions, the humans persevered. Over the centuries, humanity's population grew again, though much smaller than before. They rebuilt cities in hidden corners of the galaxy, out of the sight of the alien species who had cast them away. Slowly, humanity's technology began to improve. What had once been thought of as primitive tools became something far more advanced. They had no choice but to grow stronger, for the galaxy had moved on, and the humans had been forgotten. At first, the rebuilding was slow. The humans had little more than scraps and salvaged parts. But they made do, a hidden colony here, a forgotten outpost there. Their scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked in secrecy, developing technologies that the galaxy's most powerful empires could never imagine. Humanity was no longer the weak species that had been exiled. It was something more, something far more dangerous. By the time the galaxy's empires realized that the humans were still alive, it was already too late. The humans had rebuilt in secret, creating weapons, ships, and strategies that would soon challenge the very power structures that had once discarded them. The galaxy, busy with its own politics and conflicts, had ignored Earth's quiet recovery. Now, the forgotten species was about to remind the galaxy just how powerful they could be. In a quiet, hidden chamber deep in the heart of a human stronghold, General Marcus stood before a group of high-ranking officials. They had gathered to discuss the next step. The time for secrecy was over. It was time for humanity to reclaim its place in the galaxy. Everyone thought we were weak. They thought we were nothing, Marcus said, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. But now we've shown them. Now they will see that we are not just survivors, we are builders, we are innovators. And we will rise. The room was silent as his words hung in the air. The other officials, once skeptical of Marcus's vision, now shared the same belief. Humanity's time had come. The galaxy would soon know that the humans were no longer a forgotten species, and they would not be ignored any longer. In the shadows of this hidden meeting, humanity's greatest weapon was prepared. It was not just their advanced technology or vast fleets, but the strength of their resolve. For centuries, humanity had lived in exile, surviving on their own, but now they had a purpose. They had a reason to fight, not just for survival, but for the future of their species. Far from the bustling capitals of the galaxy's great empires, humanity had quietly built a powerful fleet. Their ships, sleek and fast, were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Each ship was equipped with weapons designed to take on the greatest of alien forces, and each crew member was trained for the battle that lay ahead. No longer would humans hide in the shadows. They would take their place at the galactic table, and they would do so as equals. As the first ship prepared to launch from its hidden base, General Marcus looked out into the distance. His mind focused on the mission ahead. The time for waiting was over. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. The ships, designed for stealth and speed, were ready to infiltrate alien space, bypassing the most powerful empires without being detected. Humanity's first target was a star system that held immense strategic importance. It was a place that alien species had long considered their own, one of many worlds they had conquered over the centuries. But now, it was about to be taken back. The operation was dangerous, and there was no turning back. The galaxy would soon learn that the forgotten species had returned, stronger and more determined than ever before. No one would be able to ignore humanity's rise. As the first ship ignited its engines, hurtling silently into the stars, General Marcus turned to the crew and gave the order for Earth, for humanity, and with that, the forgotten species began to take its first steps back into the galaxy, steps that would change the course of history forever. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but they would soon find out humanity was no longer the underdog. It was a force that could not be ignored. The hidden fleet for centuries. Humanity had been in exile, quietly rebuilding while the galaxy moved on without them. The mighty alien empires, secure in their dominion, believed the humans were a forgotten species, no longer a threat to the galaxy's power structures. But deep within the farthest reaches of space, humanity had been quietly constructing something that would soon shake the foundations of the entire universe. The hidden human fleet, built in secrecy and with technology that rivaled the galaxy's greatest empires, was ready to take action. It had taken decades, no, centuries of planning. But now the first wave of ships, sleek and deadly, was prepared to launch from their hidden bases. These ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They were fast, stealthy, and more advanced than anything the alien empires could even imagine. General Marcus stood in the war room, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. It was time, the fleet was ready, and the operation had begun. The human ships were cloaked, invisible to the prying eyes of alien scanners, allowing them to move undetected through alien territory. But now they would strike. The first move would be quiet but decisive. A single system rich in resources and strategically important was about to fall under human control. We can't afford to be seen. If we're detected too early, everything will be lost, General Marcus said, his voice low but firm. His team, a mix of military strategists, engineers, and scientists, nodded in agreement. They had spent years, almost a lifetime, preparing for this. Humanity's survival depended on this moment. A young officer, Lieutenant Kara, turned toward Marcus with a cautious expression. What if they fight back, sir? The alien fleets are massive. Do we have enough firepower to stand against them? If things go wrong, Marcus's eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. We don't need to fight their entire fleet. We need to strike fast, take control, and disappear before they even realize what's happened. Our strength lies in our surprise, our speed. We strike like shadows in the night. The officers in the room nodded, their resolve solidifying. They had trained for this moment, and now it was time to see their work come to life. The first human ships silently lifted off from their hidden bases, their engines barely whispering as they moved through the cold darkness of space. Their destination, an alien-controlled star system on the outer rim of the galaxy. The system was home to vital resources, ones the aliens had long exploited, but that humanity would now take for themselves. This was not just about reclaiming what was once lost. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity was no longer the weak, exiled species. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet approached the alien system, Lieutenant Kara monitored the scanners. We're in position, she reported, her fingers flying over the controls. We're cloaked and undetected. We can proceed with the mission. Marcus nodded, his face grim. Begin the operation. Take control of the system. And remember, we move fast, no hesitation. The human fleet moved into position, silently infiltrating the alien system. Their targets were specific military outposts, communication arrays, and power stations that would cripple the enemy's defenses. The first wave of attacks was swift and precise. The humans unleashed their new weapons, silent, high-energy plasma cannons that tore through alien ships before their crews could react. Within moments, entire alien fleets were disabled, floating helplessly in space. The galaxy's most powerful species had no idea that humanity had the ability to strike with such power. The aliens, who had once believed that humanity was little more than a footnote in galactic history, were now being hit where it hurt. Their supply lines were cut, their communications severed, and their military operations halted. As the human fleet continued its assault, Marcus stood at the command center, watching as the holographic map showed the alien systems falling into human hands one by one. He felt a surge of satisfaction. But he knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle would come when the galaxy realized what was happening, when they understood that humanity had returned not as weak exiles, but as a power capable of reshaping the galaxy. Hours passed, and the operation was nearing its end. The first human wave had taken full control of the alien system. The once proud empire, which had held this sector for centuries, was now on its knees, its defenses shattered. General Marcus felt the weight of their success, but there was still one thing left to do. They had to disappear, vanish into the shadows before the alien empires realized what had happened. Mission accomplished, Kara said, looking up from her console. The system is ours. The aliens have no idea what hit them. Marcus nodded, but remained focused. We're not done yet. It's time to vanish. Make sure all evidence of our presence is erased. We've made our move, but now we wait. The human fleet began to retreat, their ships slipping back into the dark corners. of space, the galaxy would never know what had happened here. They had struck without warning, without hesitation, and left the alien empire in chaos. The first step toward humanity's rise had been taken, and there was no going back. As the human ships disappeared into the darkness of space, Marcus looked out at the stars, his mind already on the next phase of their plan. The galaxy had been warned, and soon the humans would show them just how far they had come. They had been forgotten. They had been exiled, but now humanity was back, and this time they were not running from anyone. They were ready to take their place among the stars. Asters, the first moveth star, stretched out before the fleet, their light dimmed by the vast darkness of space, but to the humans aboard the ships, they were no longer just distant points of light. They were now part of humanity's new domain, a domain reclaimed by sheer will and secret power. As General Marcus looked out into the endless expanse, the cold silence of space did little to cool the excitement bubbling inside him. The time for hiding was over. The first move had been made, and the galaxy would soon feel the consequences. The alien systems that had once been thought to be invincible lay in ruins, the prized military assets of a dominant empire reduced to debris. Human ships, sleek and swift, had struck like shadows, dismantling the enemy's defenses in the dead of space. Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The humans had shown not only their strength but their ability to plan with precision and execute flawlessly. This was not a fluke, it was a demonstration of humanity's power. Yet, even as the victory hung in the air, something darker lingered beneath the surface. The battle was far from over, and the alien empires would soon discover that they were no longer the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. The human fleet slipped deeper into the galaxy's outer rim, far from the watchful eyes of the alien powers. They had taken the first system, but they knew the next phase would be even more challenging. The attack had been swift, almost surgical, but now the real test began. It wasn't enough to take a few systems. Humanity would have to expand, outpace the galactic powers, and prove that their strength wasn't just in their technology, but in their ability to adapt, innovate, and lead. A quiet tension filled the bridge of the command ship as Marcus watched his fleet take position in the new star system. They had avoided detection so far, but that was no longer going to be an option. Soon, the galaxy would take notice, and the humans would have to deal with the inevitable retaliation. Lieutenant Kara, one of the brightest young officers on the fleet, approached Marcus with an update. Her face was tense, a reflection of the growing pressure on everyone's shoulders. General, we've just intercepted communications from the Zorth Empire. They've noticed the disturbances and are mobilizing their fleet to investigate. They're calling it an anomaly, but I'm certain they're looking for us. The rest of the galaxy is about to find out we've made our move. Marcus nodded slowly. I knew it was only a matter of time before the Zorth Empire made its move. But the Zorth Empire isn't the only power we have to worry about. They'll send word to the others. The Galactic Council will be watching closely. We need to act fast and be prepared. Our strength lies in our unpredictability. Kara's brow furrowed. And if they retaliate, Marcus said, we'll be ready. The galaxy may have underestimated us, but they won't make that mistake again. Our fleet isn't just a defense force. It's a statement, a warning to every empire that the humans are no longer a forgotten species. He turned to the officers gathered on the bridge, each one focused on the task at hand. Prepare for the next phase. We expand quietly. We move in the shadows, hit hard, and disappear before they even know what's happening. As the orders were relayed, a feeling of unity and purpose filled the command center. The humans were no longer hiding, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. And they would not back down. Their journey was just beginning. And they were ready to make the galaxy understand that the exiled species had returned stronger than ever, back in the heart of the alien empire. The news spread like wildfire. The shockwave from the humans' unexpected strikes had reached every corner of the galaxy. The Zorth Empire, once an impenetrable force, was now unsure of its position. The news of the attack had sent shockwaves through the highest ranks. They had underestimated humanity for centuries, and now they were forced to confront the reality that Earth, the planet they had exiled and forgotten, had become a formidable power. Zorth, the supreme leader of the empire, stood in front of his council, his expression grim as he studied the data. The humans have done something we never anticipated. They've disrupted our control over an entire star system. We thought we had pushed them into the depths of space, but now they've risen from the ashes and struck us where we least expected. One of Zorth's advisors, an aging strategist named Jacker, spoke up. We must respond, but we cannot underestimate them. Their technology, their speed, it's beyond anything we've encountered. This is not the same species we exiled. They've evolved, and they've done so in secrecy. If we move too quickly, we risk making them our enemies, but if we hesitate, They will continue to grow stronger. Zorith's fingers drummed on the table, his mind racing. This is not just about defeating them, it's about understanding what they want. We cannot afford to make the same mistakes we made with their ancestors. We must learn from this, or we risk losing control of the galaxy. The council fell silent. The weight of Zorith's words hanging in the air, the Empire was faced with a dilemma it hadn't anticipated: how to deal with a species that had not only survived, but was now actively rising to challenge the status quo. Humanity's return was no longer a question of if, it was a question of when the galaxy would be forced to confront the reality that Earth had returned stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. And in the silence that followed, Zorith's voice rang out once more: prepare the fleet. It's time we remind them who truly controls the galaxy. But even as the Zorith Empire mobilized its forces, they knew that the game had changed. Humanity was no longer the forgotten species. The galaxy had been warned, the humans had returned, and the universe would never be the same again. The galaxy. Response: news of humanity's sudden rise spread like wildfire across the galaxy. From the farthest reaches of alien-controlled space to the most established star systems, the galaxy's great empires were in disarray. The once proud alien civilizations that had dismissed Earth as a forgotten relic were now faced with a new reality. Humanity had not only survived but had secretly become a force to be reckoned with, and this was only the beginning. In the Galactic capital, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful species met in an emergency session. The room was filled with the leaders of the galaxy's oldest and most influential empires: the Zorith Empire, the Aldari Dominion, the Korath Conglomerate, and many others. They had long dominated the stars, but now they were facing something unexpected, something they were not ready for. Zorith, once confident in his empire's dominance, stood at the head of the council. His normally calm demeanor had been replaced with a rare tension. The human strike on their outlying star system had left the galaxy's most powerful fleets crippled, and now the entire galaxy was on the brink of an unknown future. We cannot ignore this, Zorith said, his voice filled with authority. The humans have shown us their strength, and it's not just in their weapons or ships. They are willing to fight for their survival. We thought we could erase them from the galaxy's memory, but now they've risen, and they will not be ignored. A representative from the Aldari Dominion, a sharp-eyed diplomat named Thaurin, spoke up. We knew the humans were resilient, but we didn't expect them to be so well prepared. Their technology is beyond our understanding, and their tactics are more efficient than we could have imagined. They've learned from our mistakes. One of the council members, a Korath warlord, slammed his fist on the table. Enough talk. We must act before they gain even more power. If we don't destroy them now, they will spread like wildfire, and we will lose our grip on the galaxy. Zorith raised his hand, silencing the room. We are not here to destroy, we need to understand them. If we respond with force alone, we risk losing everything. We need to find out what they truly want. The alien council members exchanged uneasy glances. Zorith was right. They had underestimated humanity's power and determination, but now that the humans had proven themselves, the galaxy's rulers were uncertain how to proceed. Meanwhile, far from the galactic capital, General Marcus and his fleet had already set their next plan into motion. Humanity had not only claimed a star system, they had begun to expand rapidly, taking advantage of the confusion caused by their surprise attack. The first major system had fallen, and now the humans were targeting another critical system, one rich in resources that would strengthen their growing empire. In the war room aboard the flagship of the human fleet, Marcus surveyed the maps of the galaxy with his officers. The time for subtlety was over. It was time for humanity to show the galaxy that they had not only come to survive, they had come to conquer. We have the element of surprise, Marcus said, his voice steady and commanding. We've already struck where they least expected it. Now we hit them where it hurts. We'll take their vital systems, we'll cripple their supply lines, and leave them in chaos. The galaxy thought they could forget us, but now we're in control. And we're not going anywhere. Lieutenant Kara, who had been with Marcus since the first battle, looked at the digital map of alien systems and pointed to one of the most strategically important planets. This is where we need to go next. The Aldari Dominion controls this system, and it's their main trade hub. Taking it will send a message to the entire galaxy that humanity is not just an emerging power. We are here to stay. General Marcus nodded, and the command was given. Humanity's next strike would be swift and overwhelming. The alien empires would soon understand that Earth's power was not only in its technology, but in its ability to act decisively without hesitation. But as Marcus's fleet prepared for their next strike, the galactic leaders were making their own moves. Zorith, along with the leaders of the galaxy's most powerful species, had made a decision. They would not let humanity rise unchecked. But they also knew that direct confrontation could lead to mutual destruction instead. They would do what they did best: manipulate the balance of power and force humanity into a choice. Zorith's voice echoed across the command center of his fleet. We will send humanity a message. We will show them that their rise will not come without consequences. But we will not strike directly. We will manipulate the galaxy's politics, divide their alliances, and sow discord among the other species. If humanity truly believes they are ready to lead the galaxy, they will have to prove it not just through force, but through diplomacy and unity. With that, the first phase of the galactic counteroffensive began. Zorith's empire, along with the Aldari and Korath forces, would begin sowing chaos. They would create divisions within the human alliance, destabilize their hold on the systems they had claimed, and ultimately test humanity's ability to maintain control. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and both sides were preparing for the next phase of the struggle. Humanity's rise had triggered a chain reaction that could change everything. The question now was whether the humans could survive the galaxy's pushback and prove they were more than just a fleeting force. Could they unite the galaxy under their rule? Or would they be swallowed up by the very powers they had once feared? As the first human fleet moved closer to the Aldari-controlled system, General Marcus felt the weight of the galaxy's future on his shoulders. The next battle would determine everything. And for the first time in millennia, Earth was no longer just surviving. It was about to shape the future of the stars. The first battle of the new empire. Humanity had taken their first bold steps into the galaxy. The shock of their sudden emergence had sent ripples through the entire universe, and now, the moment of truth was upon them. The aliens who had once pushed humanity to the farthest reaches of space were not going to stand by and let the humans reclaim what was once theirs. The galaxy's most powerful species were preparing for war, and humanity was about to face its first true test. General Marcus stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes focused on the digital map of the galaxy that glowed in front of him. The target was the Aldari-controlled trade hub system, a vital point in the galaxy's supply chain. It was the key to the Aldari Dominion's power. If the humans could take the system, they would send a message to the galaxy: humanity was no longer the underdog. Humanity was here to dominate. The fleet was prepared, each ship armed and ready. Marcus could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This wasn't just about taking a system, it was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy. It was the first battle of many, and it would set the tone for everything to come. Report, Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with determination. Lieutenant Kara, his trusted officer, turned to him. We've reached the outer perimeter of Aldari space. We're cloaked, and the enemy hasn't detected us yet. Our ships are in position for the attack. Good, no hesitation, Marcus replied. We move in fast. Strike hard and get out before they even know what hit them. The human fleet moved like a shadow, silently slipping into the heart of Aldari-controlled space. The aliens, accustomed to the quiet, predictable nature of their trade routes, were completely unprepared for the sudden appearance of humanity's fleet. The element of surprise was their greatest weapon. Humanity's ships were unlike anything the aliens had seen: fast, sleek, and almost invisible to their scanners. As the first human ships entered the heart of the system, Marcus gave the order. The assault began. The first strike was quick and brutal. Human warships, equipped with energy weapons far more advanced than anything the aliens had, targeted the Aldari's power stations, cutting off their ability to communicate and respond. The human fleet moved with precision, taking out key defenses before the enemy could even mount a counterattack. The Aldari fleet scrambled to react, but they were too late. Humanity's ships were already in motion, disrupting their military stations and disabling their defenses one by one. The battle was over before the Aldari knew what had happened. This is too easy, Kara said, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and excitement. They didn't even have time to respond. Marcus nodded, his face grim. We can't get careless. This is just the beginning, but it's a victory. Humanity had not just won the first battle they had done so with a level of efficiency and power that no one, not even the galaxy's greatest empires, had anticipated. The Aldari Dominion's defenses were shattered and the system fell under human control. But as the dust settled from the battle, a sense of unease began to settle over the human fleet. This victory was monumental, but the real challenge was only beginning. The galaxy's empires were not going to let this go unanswered. We've won, but the galaxy will soon know what happened here, Kara said, her voice serious. The Aldari may be down, but they won't stay quiet for long. The rest of the galaxy will come after us. Marcus turned toward her, his eyes hard with resolve. Let them come, we're ready. As the human fleet regrouped and began to consolidate, Their victory, news of the attack spread across the galaxy, the Aldari Dominion. Once the masters of the star system were humiliated, their once impenetrable trade hub was now under human control, and the galaxy was forced to face the undeniable truth: humanity had risen. Back in the galactic capital, leaders from all the major empires gathered to discuss the new threat that had emerged. Zorith, the leader of the Zorith Empire, stood before the council, his face grim. "The humans have made their move," Zorith said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of power. "They have shown us their strength, and they have proven they can strike when we least expect it. The Aldari are vulnerable, and if we do not act, the humans will continue to take control." An advisor from the Korath conglomerate spoke up. "We have underestimated them. They are no longer just a scattered species hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy. They are organized, powerful, and most importantly, they are willing to fight." Zorith's gaze sharpened. "We will not allow the humans to take over. We must respond. But we must do so carefully. If we strike too soon, we risk provoking them into full-scale war. But if we wait too long, they will gain too much power." The council fell silent as the leaders of the galaxy's most powerful empires began to debate their next move. The one secure control of the galaxy was slipping through their fingers. The humans had become a threat they couldn't ignore, and soon, the entire galaxy would be forced to deal with the reality of Earth's return. Back on the battlefield, General Marcus and his fleet stood victorious, but they knew the hardest battles were yet to come. Humanity had taken its first steps toward domination, but the galaxy's empires were regrouping, preparing to fight back. The war for the future of the galaxy had begun, and humanity was now at the center of it. "Prepare for the next phase," Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy will see that humanity is no longer a species to be forgotten. We are here to stay." As the human fleet moved forward, the galaxy watched. They had underestimated Earth, but now, the true battle for the stars was about to begin, and humanity would not back down. The galactic response with shockwaves from humanity's stunning victory over the Aldari Dominion reverberated through the galaxy, shaking the very foundation of its oldest empires. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful species found themselves on the defensive. The notion of a forgotten species, humans rising so suddenly and decisively, had created an unforeseen crisis. It was no longer a question of if humanity could rise. It was a question of how the galaxy would respond to Earth's newfound power. In the heart of the Zorith Empire's capital, Zorith, the supreme leader, stood before a massive holographic projection of the galaxy. His council gathered around him, their faces grim and anxious. This wasn't just about reclaiming lost territory or reasserting dominance, it was about survival. The humans had proven themselves capable of destabilizing even the most secure empires. "We must act quickly," Zorith said, his voice cold and calculated. "If we allow humanity to gain more ground, they will not just be a threat, they will become a new power. The Aldari Dominion has been crippled, and now it's time for us to remind humanity who controls the galaxy." One of the council members, a military strategist named Rillick, spoke up. "The humans are unpredictable. They don't act like the other species we've faced. We can't underestimate them. They've already proven they can strike without warning." Zorith's eyes narrowed, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the table. "We will not underestimate them, but we must also show them that they cannot simply take what they want. If they continue to grow unchecked, they will upset the delicate balance we've fought for. The galaxy has never known a species like humanity." Meanwhile, the other galactic empires, including the Aldari Dominion's fractured leadership, began to formulate their own responses. The once unshakable alliances that held the galaxy together were now starting to crack under the pressure. The Korath conglomerate, a faction known for its ruthless tactics, had already begun to mobilize their fleets. They knew that the best way to deal with humanity was to strike hard and fast, before the humans could solidify their hold on more star systems. But as they prepared their ships and armies, a quiet voice of caution emerged from the galaxy's oldest empire, the Zephyrin Alliance, led by an ancient species that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. "We cannot just attack humanity without knowing what they truly want," said Aelrix, the Zephyrin ambassador. "They've proven themselves capable of warfare, but we must ask ourselves, what do they seek? Do they want to conquer the galaxy? Or is there something more at play here? If we act without understanding their motives, we risk making the same mistake the Aldari made. The galaxy's greatest empires have always been divided. Perhaps the humans can show us a better way." Zorith looked sharply at Aelrix, considering his words. It was rare for the Zephyrins to offer such insight, but even as Aelrix spoke of caution, Zorith knew the risk of waiting. The galaxy had never known a species that could so quickly rise. from the ashes, and the Zorth Empire would not allow itself to be eclipsed by a forgotten race. "We will not be held back by uncertainty," Zorth declared. "We move now. We will initiate an alliance, but not with Earth. We will form a coalition. To push back humanity's advance, we will teach them that the galaxy is not theirs to control." The strategy was clear: a military alliance of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empires, united against the rise of the human empire. The first objective was to reclaim the star systems humanity had taken by force, but as the plan began to take shape, one thing became clear: this wouldn't be a simple military operation. The galaxy's empires had spent centuries building their dominance. Humanity's sudden emergence had thrown everything into chaos, and now they were forced to reckon with an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. Back on Earth, General Marcus watched as his fleet continued to expand, moving from one system to the next. The galaxy's response was inevitable, but humanity had prepared for this. Their fleets, though small in number compared to the galaxy's empires, were more advanced than anyone had expected. General Marcus knew that the coming battles would not be won through sheer numbers, they would be won through strategy, technology, and humanity's unwavering will to survive. "We've made our move," Marcus said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "Now, the galaxy will have to decide if they want to face us as enemies or as equals." The human fleet had already taken several key star systems. Now, they were preparing for the next stage, expanding their reach, solidifying their control, and preparing for the inevitable conflict with the galaxy's empires. The aliens might have more ships, more weapons, but humanity had something they lacked: the will to fight for their future. The first wave of alien ships had already moved toward the border of human-controlled space, and the time for diplomacy was over. Humanity had made its stand, and now the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences. "The galaxy has been given a choice," Marcus said to his officers as they watched the holographic display. "We're not here to conquer, but we won't be pushed back again. If they come for us, we'll show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." As the first enemy fleets closed in on their positions, humanity's resolve only strengthened. The galaxy might have forgotten them for 500,000 years, but Earth's exiled species would no longer be ignored. The fight for control of the galaxy was only beginning, and humanity would stand at the center of it all. The question now was no longer whether the humans could survive. It was whether the galaxy would bend to their will or be forced to face the full might of Earth's rising empire. The rise of a new order. The galaxy was on the edge of a new dawn. The stars, once symbols of distant empires and ancient powers, were now filled with a different kind of promise. A promise that had come from the most unexpected of places: humanity. The species, exiled and forgotten by the galaxy's rulers, had risen in the shadows and was now challenging the very order that had dominated the stars for centuries. What was once thought to be a distant dream had become an undeniable reality. Humanity's first battle had been won, but the galaxy was far from ready to accept Earth's place at the top. The alliances forged by ancient empires were crumbling, their leaders divided. The galactic empires, unified in their fear of humanity's sudden power, had already begun their counterattacks. Fleet after fleet was mobilized, their ships cutting through the stars in search of the elusive human fleet. The galaxy's once unwavering dominance was now being questioned, and the cosmic balance was shifting in ways that had never been anticipated. General Marcus stood at the helm of Earth's flagship, staring at the stars ahead of him. The ships under his command moved silently through space, their paths carefully charted. The victory over the Aldari Dominion had given humanity a foothold, but now they had to take the next steps to ensure their place in the galaxy. He knew that the fight was far from over. The empires of the galaxy were determined to push back against humanity's rise. But Marcus also knew something that the alien species didn't. Humanity had been forged in the fires of adversity. They had fought for every inch of progress, every scrap of technology, and every moment of freedom. They were not afraid to fight again. "We've taken the first system," Kara said, her voice steady as she stood by Marcus. "Now, we prepare for what's next." Marcus turned to her, his eyes cold and determined. "Next, we take another. We show the galaxy that this isn't a fluke. We take what's ours. We keep moving forward." As the first wave of alien forces approached, Marcus's voice rang out in the war room, commanding and calm: "Prepare for battle. Humanity is no longer a hidden species. We will not be pushed aside. We will show the galaxy what we're capable of." The human fleet moved with deadly precision, engaging alien forces and rapidly expanding its territory. Each victory, each star system claimed, sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The ancient empires that had once ruled the stars found themselves grappling with an enemy they had underestimated, a species that had been cast out and forgotten. only to rise with a strength that no one had expected. In the council chambers of the Zorath Empire, the leaders gathered, their faces grim and tense. Zorath, once confident in his position as the galaxy's most powerful ruler, now found himself facing a new reality: humanity, which had been nothing more than an afterthought in the minds of the galaxy's oldest empires, was now a force that could not be ignored. "We've let them grow too strong," Jacker, one of Zorath's closest advisors, said, his voice filled with frustration. "The humans have taken another system. Their fleet is unlike anything we've ever seen." Zorath stood up, his expression hard. "We can't let them continue. We must strike now. Before they get any stronger, we will mobilize everything we have." But even as the Zorath Empire prepared for war, there was a growing sense of unease among the galaxy's most powerful leaders. No one had anticipated the rise of humanity. No one had expected Earth's exiled species to return and threaten the very foundation of their empires: the Zorath Empire, the Aldari Dominion, and the Korath conglomerate, all once secure in their reign, now found themselves scrambling for answers. The galaxy had been shaken and the balance of power was in flux. But the humans, while still vastly outnumbered by the galaxy's empires, were no longer the vulnerable species they had once been. They had found strength in their struggle, and now they were putting it to use. Every victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal: not just survival, but domination. Humanity was not here to simply survive. They were here to reshape the galaxy. The final showdown between humanity and the galaxy's most powerful species was inevitable. The human fleet, having proven its strength, was now ready to engage in a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. But as the two forces prepared to meet in the stars, there was a subtle shift happening within the ranks of the galaxy's leaders. They had long prided themselves on their power and influence, but now they were forced to acknowledge that the universe had changed. The humans were no longer a forgotten species, they were a new force, a new order. On the eve of the final confrontation, General Marcus stood on the command deck. Looking out at the stars, the human fleet was assembled, its ships lined up in perfect formation, ready to face the galaxy's mightiest empires. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "This is our moment. We've shown them what we can do. Now, we take what's ours." As the battle loomed, Marcus knew that this fight was not just for control of the galaxy, it was for humanity's place in the universe. This was not just about taking star systems, it was about rewriting the future. About proving to the galaxy that humanity was no longer the forgotten species. They had been exiled, cast aside, and underestimated. But now, they stood as the new rulers of the stars, and with that, humanity's rise was complete. The galaxy would never be the same.